Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Future of Medicine podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Aaron Wenzel, as always joined by the lovely and talented Jennifer Justice.
Hey Doc, how are you?
Amazing.
Good.
End of summer. 23. School's kicking off.
Yep.
It's busy times for everyone.
Fall is here.
Almost.
I'm ready for fall. It's been too hot.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love that we get all four seasons, but
summers are oppressive.
Whenever it's time for one to end, the other one is around the corner. This episode is about osteoporosis. It's a topic that when we were digging through what we do, it came to my attention that we don't have any formal content on a top killer of women. And so the title of this podcast is Osteoporosis, a top 10 killer of women that not many people are talking about. We feel very passionately in our practice that bone health is essential if you have a goal of living a vibrant life on the back half. We're a musculoskeletal creature where everything is built on top of our muscles, bones, tendons, and ligaments. And if there is a problem with the foundation, you're only going to get so far if you start working on the framing and electrical and pillows and drapes and paint.
Right.
You know, I mean, it really is kind of analogous to that. I mean, we really need a strong infrastructure if we want to have a dynamic, healthy, vibrant life. So to jump into this, let's first talk about what is it? What is osteoporosis for the listeners that are familiar with the term but really need to wrap their head around it at a high level?
Yeah. So at its core, basically what it means is it's a loss of bone mineral density. So we're talking about how dense and basically hard your bones are. And in doing some research for this podcast, I didn't realize this, but maybe you didn't either, but adults reach their peak bone mass at about age 35, and then it starts to go down after that, which is similar to like hormones and all the things that we know are good for us.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I would have guessed 40, only because after the age of 40, men lose about 3% of their lean mass every year. So likely not coincidental that we're having a drop in bone density and hormones.
Yeah.
But more on that
very
later.
Connected. And so there's like two classes of this disease. The first one is called osteopenia. And so this is the precursor to osteoporosis. And it's really like the thinning of the bones. So it's not where we're in full-blown like osteoporosis yet, but we're noticing a thinning. And the definition is really that the bone mineral density is below normal when we look at like a DEXA scan, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it's not yet to osteoporosis. So it's kind of like the beginning of it.
So osteoporosis is the disease, and then the pre-osteoporosis is osteopenia.
Right. And then you get into osteoporosis, which osteo is the word for bone, porosis meaning porous. So you can put those two together and kind of get the idea of what it is. But basically it's where the creation of new bone can't keep up with the loss.
Yeah, that's right.
So we have more loss than we do creation of new bone. And when maybe you all remember this from health class, I kind of do, but when you look at normal bone under a microscope, like a bone tissue sample, it kind of looks like a honeycomb. And when you get osteoporosis, what happens is those spaces in the honeycomb are very wide, they're very large. And so the connective kind of tissue within the bone is very porous, which of course leads it to more susceptible to breaking, fractures, and that type of thing. And so we diagnose these two things based on a DEXA scan, which is a test that's really recommended for women about 65 and older right now. Again, based on those kind of, criteria that...
Population-based health.
Population-based health. And what a DEXA scan is, it's really kind of a cool test, but it's non-invasive and it's painless, so it's not going to hurt. But it's an X-ray, and it looks at the bones specifically in certain areas of the body the lumbar spine. So we're looking at that area. We're looking at the hips, and different areas of the hips, like the long bones and the actual hip joint itself, and then your wrist. And so what they do is they look at your DEXA scan and they score it based on comparing it to normal young bones in the same sex. So if a man were to get a DEXA scan per se, they would compare that to a younger man, like maybe in his 30s.
When you would expect normal bone matrix density.
And so then they look at these scores, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about them, but just know that that's how it's diagnosed and how we pick it up.
It's a scoring system.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a net score.
Right. It's a deviation from the mean.
At any of these areas could trigger diagnostic criteria to carry this identification.
Yeah. So you're either normal or you have osteopenia or osteoporosis.
And if you have osteoporosis, how bad?
Right.
And it quantifies the amount of bone density loss.
Right.
Which is really critical. So why should people care? I mean, it's interesting. And if everyone is kind of bound, especially women, are bound to, why is this a big deal? Is it only women? Should only women care? Help us all understand why does bone density matter at scale?
So obviously normal bone density, you want a healthy skeleton. You want a healthy infrastructure to carry your body around, to be able to function at a high level. When we see osteopenia, it's not a life or death sentence. Like, it's not severe bells and whistles. Oh my goodness. I mean, that's, hopefully reversible with some of the things we'll talk about later. But when you get into osteoporosis, it's a severe and significant source of mortality for people. It is one of the top 10 killers of females, which I did not realize that.
Which is wild.
Yeah. And
that means all of the things in the universe that can kill a woman, it's in the top 10.
Yeah.
And
like we think about cancer, breast cancer,
heart disease,
strokes,
Alzheimer's,
dementia, all the big ones.
Infections.
But I would have never pegged osteoporosis in even the top 10.
It's a huge deal.
And 50% of humans on the planet over the age of 50 have osteoporosis, which is staggering.
Yeah, that's even hard to even understand, especially if you're hearing this and you live in a kind of a first world nation. But on the planet, outside of first world nations, it's an even larger killer of humans, not just females, and largely due to, nutritional deficiencies. There just isn't enough food or nutritious food, so you get diseased bone. But in civilized worlds, civilized countries, United States, most of Europe, Canada, Australia, it's very much skewed towards postmenopausal women.
Yeah. So. And, the mortality comes from the high risk for falls, especially in the elderly. I mean, you working in the ER, how many times did you see an elderly woman come in with a hip fracture due to a fall,
Way too often.
And those can be deadly.
Well, the data tell us that the mortality rates at 12 months after a hip fracture approach 50%.
Yeah. That's scary.
That's approaching half of all women who break their hip will not be alive in 12 months as a direct consequence of a hip fracture. It could have been they developed pneumonia, a blood clot, infection, failed surgery, sepsis from a bed sore. It just, once you break a bone in your pelvic floor, which is the most important hinge point in the musculoskeletal system of a human, everything is on high alert.
Yeah.
Because you're not moving.
Right.
And when you don't move, that's a fast track to not living long. We are created to be in motion.
Yeah.
And when we're not, bad things happen.
Yeah.
So it's a major, major deal. Second part of this discussion is, and we've alluded to it in part, but in whole, can you run us through the primary contributors to this as a problem? Again, keeping it super high level. Why is osteoporosis such a problem?
Well, some of the contributing factors are, and we see these type of women in our practice, is the females that have a really small body habitus or small frame. Sometimes they're of Asian descent or other races, but tiny women have a higher risk of osteoporosis and osteopenia, so we have to keep them in mind. Poor nutrition, you've kind of touched on that already. And a lot of the vitamin deficiencies, which are super common. Like, I don't know the last time I looked at a lab sheet where one of our members was not vitamin D deficient.
Who wasn't supplementing.
Right, who was not supplementing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know the last time I've seen an optimal range of vitamin D in someone who was not supplementing.
Yeah.
I cannot remember.
Yeah. And, it's called the sunshine vitamin. And if you think about it, for me personally, probably 90% of my day is spent indoors. I'm at a desk behind a computer. I don't get enough sunshine during the day, and we don't really convert enough vitamin D from the sun anyway, unless we're out in it a lot. So that's a huge contributor. And then calcium, obviously that's a bone building mineral. So
yeah, the primary mineral in bone is calcium.
Yep.
And so it's needed for a lot of biochemical processes in our physiology. And so if the body needs it, because you're not eating it, it's going to absorb it from your bone.
Right.
And this is where you get into trouble.
Yeah.
And
if you're not getting enough of it through your diet, like I know a lot of our females avoid dairy for a lot of different reasons, and so, or they don't get enough leafy green vegetables, those.
And even if they do, there's things about quality of food. There's quality of soil. There's a minerally depleted. It's a multifactorial, multifaceted problem. The net result is most women are not getting enough micronutrient density in their everyday diet, causes a host of risks to be elevated. One that we're talking about today is osteoporosis.
Yeah. Another big one is not enough strength training. So, I was guilty of this for a long time in my fitness journey of cardio,
right.
because my goal was to lose fat. And while that's a worthy goal, and I do see a lot of women at the gym on the cardio machines, not judging them. However, getting in the gym and doing weight-bearing exercises is super important for laying down new bone and preserving the bone that you have. When we talk about strength training or weight-bearing exercises too, anything where your feet touch the ground. For example, running or walking is weight-bearing, swimming and biking is not. So there's a big difference. And getting enough of that in your routine throughout the week of those weight-bearing things.
It's a big deal that you touched on. It bears kind of just highlighting one more time, not to go too deep, and we've created content on the benefits of strength training for women, and this is generalities. I'm speaking there are certainly some women who love lifting, and there are certainly some men who love cardio. But on average, men begin their fitness journey with weights.
Yeah.
In general. Women, in general, begin their fitness journey with some form of cardio. On the treadmill, the elliptical, and for a lot of guys, cardio is kind of an afterthought, or I'll squeeze in a little bit if I can, or if I have some energy at the end of my workout, I'll go do it. Women, it's almost the inverse on average. And another example of strength weight-bearing exercise, as you mentioned in walking, especially if you're a heavier woman. Now, a heavy woman is going to have a unique risk profile for other things like metabolic disease, etc. But a very heavy woman, by definition, with every step, is strength training her femur and her pelvis. They have very thick and very healthy bone density. They tend to not break hips. The women who break hips are tiny women, as you've alluded to. I just really want to stress this. This is you check all the marks for cardiovascular risk reduction, for dementia reduction, all these things, and then out of nowhere, a top 10 killer is in there that is uniquely going to impact lean, fit, metabolically pristine women. 85,
and it's scary.
On no medicine, living their best life, trip over a rose bush, break a hip, dead in 3 months. Like, that's what happens. Anyway, we can move on, but strength training is really, really a big deal. So if you're a little woman and you've done all of your risk stratifying to maximize or to minimize your risk for cardiovascular disease, do not overlook the benefits of loading your spine and squatting, lunging, deadlifting, weight-bearing exercise. You have to challenge those bones because your weight, your 120-pound frame, is not enough to force your bones to be stronger, because we won't waste energy. We won't make bones that are stronger than we need,
And
unless we get signals that we need more.
And I promise you, you will not get bulky. I've been doing this for 1.5 years, and I am not bulky.
One of the biggest myths that many women struggle with is, I don't want to lift because I don't want to look like a boy.
Right.
That is not going to happen.
Right.
It just will not. You will have more tone. Every woman's physique that you look at as a woman and say, gosh, she looks really good, that woman lifts weights.
Yep.
With no exception. Muscle tone, muscle definition, not being soft. These are the qualities that as a human we all crave. Being a buff woman is not going to happen by strength training.
Right.
And again, if you want more information on that or our thoughts on that, we'll link to some other episodes that we've done, which was a great episode on the benefits of
strength training for women.
Specifically for women. Another not talked about enough benefit. Okay.
Another one is your hormone levels. I mean, we're pretty bullish about this in our practice, which I love.
Yeah.
But again, vitamin D3 is a hormone, so we can't overlook that one. But knowing your thyroid levels, optimizing your thyroid helps with calcium, metabolism and regulation in the body. Testosterone for both men and women. Huge, super important hormone. And again, this comes with some controversy, but if you find a provider that knows how to optimize the levels and is safe about it, testosterone lays down 50% more bone than estrogen.
Yeah.
Estrogen is thought of the bone,
the magic hormone
hormone for bone, but really it's testosterone, and especially in women. So, don't.
But estrogen is important too.
Yeah.
So hormone optimization for women that are postmenopausal, it's absolutely, being in say it this way, one of the major contributors to postmenopausal osteoporosis numbers that we're seeing is the hormonally barren environment that women find themselves the day after they go into menopause. Everything that kept you young and healthy and vibrant on the front half hormonally is gone.
Yeah.
And so this is why disease tends to outpace in females tends to outpace their male counterparts on the back half of life. It's a tremendous overlooked disadvantage that women have that in many cases can be managed through a thoughtful approach, discussion, and consideration of hormone optimization.
Yeah.
What's one more?
And then it's just like we've alluded to, it's just not on people's radar. If you have never heard about these diseases before, or maybe it's something like you think, oh, my grandma is going to had osteoporosis. I don't need to think about it right now.
Or it's something that
I'm not
this little percentage
postmenopause yet.
People deal with.
Yeah.
No. This is a big deal.
50% of humans. That's a lot.
Yeah. Just the fact that it's not being talked about is a major contributor to the fact that this is a problem. In the last section of the episode, as we always do, we like to leave with some actionable steps. If you're listening to this, and if there's a woman listening to this, Jen, and they're like, you have my attention. First
I
of all,
hope so.
Exactly. First of all,
thank you.
That's if one person from this episode sparks a conversation with their provider, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
That's really what our North Star is on this episode, is to just get people to talk about it.
Yeah. And that's the first thing, is put it on your radar.
So action step number 1.
Put it on your radar.
Put it on your radar.
Yeah. The biggest thing we've talked a lot about, and you've helped me understand, there's a difference between preventing chronic disease and delaying, right? That's a huge difference. And the goal with all of this is to prevent and delay osteopenia. We don't even want the precursor to happen, right? So that's the biggest thing. And to have a conversation about your provider, where you are on the spectrum, or where you might be. And maybe you do need a DEXA scan earlier than 65.
Yeah. Where am I as a baseline?
Let's get a good baseline, even before I hit postmenopause.
Sure.
And then see if we need to rescan or do something like that.
No, in an ideal world, before a woman is menopausal, she would have what I would consider a baseline DEXA scan, even if you had to pay out of pocket cash.
Right.
I paid to have one done. My insurance isn't going to pay for that. I don't remember what it was. $100, $200. There was some cost. It wasn't a ton.
Yeah.
It was interesting information, but I think having a baseline is really super, super useful, especially when you start to fall. Well, where did I live historically? It gives you some sort of like horizon to shoot for. A lot of women don't have that. They can't go back in time and get that. They already find themselves 64 and menopausal. And then the answer is yesterday.
Yeah.
Just get one. Just get it.
Yeah.
And you need to have eyes on it. You can't manage what you don't measure.
That's
and
right.
we have a way to actually measure what is the state of the union of my bones. And is this something that everything's good? Cool. Carry on. We'll check again in 5-10 years. Is it mild osteopenia, moderate osteopenia? Oh my gosh, like I am like sprinting towards osteoporosis. Do I need to double down on all these strategies to prevent or delay the onset of diseased bone called osteoporosis? And God forbid we find osteoporosis, but at least you know.
Right.
Many women discover they have osteoporosis when they break their hip.
Yeah.
How could this happen? I just tripped on a step on a parking where they park the parking block things, a curb, just a misstep. Bing, bing, bang. I can't get up. I don't know what happened. Feels like a bomb went off in my hip. Oh, it's fractured. Oh, look at your bones are so thin. No one's ever told me that.
Right.
They said I was normal. We just want, for as many women as possible, that to not be the story.
Yeah.
So I'm going on and on about that, but I think
I
having the conversation is putting it on the radar is number one. What's the next thing?
Fix your nutrition. So, obviously knowing your numbers is important. Get your vitamin D levels checked. Make sure that you're supplementing. We recommend 5,000 IUs or international units to start, depending on where your levels are.
Vitamin D3.
D3, the actual hormone itself. And you want to eat that with a fatty meal. So it's a fat-soluble hormone.
Yeah, this is a real pros tip. And we found this out clinically. The absorption is far better if it's being consumed with a fatty meal.
Yeah.
As opposed to, we teach a lot of fasting. People will take their vitamins in their fasting, and they're just not getting great levels.
Right.
Those fatty soluble vitamins, they need the fat to be absorbed. Okay, so vitamin D3.
We talked about calcium.
Calcium.
Making sure you're getting enough of that. Just if you need to supplement, you can, or you can get
There's
it
lots of
through,
options. There's chews. There's
fish, dark leafy greens, those type of things. And the next one is hormone replacement therapy. Again, you've alluded to sometimes this can be controversial, not for us. We measure male and female hormones. We encourage our members to optimize them. We're very skilled at doing that. And we get great results from it. So
yeah, I mean, I want to pause here just for a second because this is a controversial area. And depending on the provider that you have, they may have a different belief system or a different conviction, or it may be avoiding their knowledge. And because as physicians, our first rule is do no harm, they might poo-poo or dismiss it because they just don't know. It may not be that they're not interested. And so, although very controversial across the board, it's not controversial to us.
right.
We've done our due diligence. We've done several hundred hours worth of deep diving into each and every one of these, and we feel very confident that in most cases it makes a ton of sense and the benefits outweigh the risks. There are some situations that we are very clear on that we're hunting for where this does not make sense and the benefits do not outweigh the risk, and you'd be deploying other strategies, not
Correct.
this, make the most sense from a risk stratification. But like crossing the street has risk. Everything in life has risk. Taking action, not taking action, doing, not doing, all of those have a certain benefit versus risk analysis that needs to be made. All we're saying is get yourself in front of somebody who is willing to at least have the conversation so that you can properly assess your unique risk and your unique potential benefit profile.
Right.
And then make an informed decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Got to know.
You got to know.
And we talked about strength training. Again, we're created to be strong, fast, nimble creatures. I mean, I love the thing that you said in the, I think it was strength training for men content, but it's our duty to be strong.
Oh.
And it's the same with women. You know, one of my mantras when I'm going through some of my workouts, which are really hard, and I do not like them, but I do them for all of these reasons to keep myself healthy and fit, is I'm strong and capable. That's like my mantra. I'm strong and I'm capable. I'm strong and I'm capable. And I just keep saying that over and over again, trying to like embed it into my brain so that I start to believe it, because it's a great feeling when you're strong, you know, especially as a female. It just boosts your confidence.
No, yeah, I mean, feeling powerful physically is not a male thing. Mm-mm. It's a human thing. And I'm really glad you brought that up. I wasn't expecting you to pull that up. I haven't thought about that in a while, but I do deeply believe, for me personally, I believe it's important for everyone.
Yeah.
My personal conviction is that it is my absolute duty to be powerful physically. And what I continue to say in that line of thinking, I haven't thought about this in a while, but is the best way to demonstrate to myself that I actually am strong is to be strong.
Yeah.
And so there's this beautiful process of pursuing something because I feel duty driven to, and then getting the feedback that confirmatory feedback that you are. And so not only am I doing right by my musculoskeletal system, my own personal psychology, my tone, my attitude, my outlook on life, you just show up differently.
Yeah.
You show up into your home, into the boardroom, at the schoolyard. You just show up different. And people who have been around strong, powerful people physically know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's
They carry themselves a little differently, don't they?
I mean, they really do.
Yeah.
You know, net result comes across as confidence. There's just a general sense of confidence when your physical body is as strong as your mental body, and there's this beautiful congruence that takes place. So as a summary, the action steps, just put it on your radar. You know, in a lot of ways, it's like what we've talked about in many of our other episodes, where it's like, find your team.
Yeah.
Like, if you have them, that's fantastic. Please take advantage of the providers that are in your life that are ready, willing, and able to help you do that. If you don't have that provider, or you have a provider where you don't think that's the right relationship, go find your provider.
Yeah.
But this needs to be, especially as a woman at 50 or above, this needs to really be escalating up your list of things to do, to get eyes on. Look, know what your vitamin D is. Know your numbers. And for most people, you're going to need a supplement.
Yeah.
And it's vitamin D3. Our general recommendation is around 5,000 units a day with a fatty meal. Just automate it. Just do it. Hormone therapy, have that conversation with your team. Do a benefits risk analysis. Make an informed decision. Be a powerful thinker. Make powerful decisions. Free-thinking, powerful people like to make powerful decisions. And so this all sets the table. And ladies,
lift the heavy stuff.
And if you don't know how to, or it's scary, or you don't want to, hire someone to help you.
This is where you don't compromise on trying it by yourself.
Just look, I know it's an investment, and you may have to kind of save. It may be a Christmas present. It may be something that you have to kind of budget. But at some point, when you're ready to implement this, and you have no idea where to start with weights, and they're scary, and you don't, there are amazing trainers, men and women trainers, who would love to introduce you to weights in a way that is aligned with your personality, your goals, but most importantly, safe. It's safe. There is a safe and productive way to get yourself as a woman under some weight.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do, you are going to start unlocking some physicality that probably you forgot you had.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It's worth it.
Coming from someone who consistently, how long have you been?
Well,
I didn't plan on going here, but it just kind of.
Thanks for asking. Definitely a year. I mean, we worked up to.
Fake news. It's been longer than a year.
No. We worked up to me getting under the bar and like squatting and deadlifting and stuff.
But working with a fitness coach.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I misunderstood you. A year and a half.
You weren't ready to lift weights. That's exactly my point.
Yeah.
Your body was in no shape. Mm-mm. And I don't know where, if you're listening to this, where you are in your journey. This is the benefit of, if it's scary and you're uncertain, hire a pro that can get you ready to do this in a way where you don't get hurt. Mm-hmm. I have seen Jen Justice front and center. I haven't done the math. But how long have you been working on a regular basis, at least once a week, with a trainer, outside of a vacation week? How long have you been working with a trainer?
A year and a half. In May, so July, yeah, a year and whatever that is.
Every week?
Almost a year, almost 2 years.
Investing
3 days
in
a
yourself.
week. Yeah, and it's not cheap.
No, it's a significant investment.
And I appreciate you letting me do it during the workday, which he does, which is amazing. But yeah, I mean, I look at it as an investment. I don't look at it as an expense. And I love paying him.
Can you talk about that real quick? What do you mean it's an investment and not an expense? So what does that mean in English?
It's one area in my life where I don't mind spending extra money because you either pay for it now or you pay for it later. Mm-hmm. And so the investment part for me is I'd rather pay for it now and have a strong, capable body into my later years. I'm not in postmenopause yet, but it's on the radar for me, and I'm very mindful of what's next. And I love making that investment in my health for myself. You know, it's not something that my husband can do for me. It's not something that you can do for me. I'm doing it for myself. And so I take the time out of my day, out of my week, out of my bank account to make that a huge priority for myself. I also love buying sneakers, but you know, some things come first.
That's not necessarily.
My strength training comes first.
The amount of discipline that you have exhibited, and commitment.
It's consistency. Yeah.
Your commitment to being consistent and showing up, whether you feel like it or not, because you deserve the results, has been something beautiful to watch unfold.
Thank you.
And I think your story will land and inspire a lot of women to begin what for many I know feels scary and kind of like, that's a man's world, and like I don't really want to do that, and you know, so many stories in their minds about why they don't do it. And you're just a great example of a woman who just looked at her fear around it and stepped right into it, and then just kept showing up. And it systematically got less scary and less scary and less scary. And all of a sudden you're like, this is who I am, and I do these things.
Remember the C-collar comment?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of shaking my head no with my trainer.
Yeah, I need you to do this. And she's, no.
I can't do it. I'm not going to lift.
He famously said, I'm going to get you a C-collar so that you could stop shaking your head with everything.
He thinks he's funny. But, those days are past. In fact, I just did it the other day with like some pull-ups that we were doing, and he's like, do we need to do a lap around the building? You just shook your head no. And I haven't seen you do that in forever. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
That's funny. New levels.
Yeah.
Well, I hope this episode is useful. Jen, I appreciate you really leading the charge on this one. I know this is a topic that's very passionate for you, and as all health, but women health specifically, this is a real area that gets overlooked. I'm happy to create some content around this. Any famous last words?
No.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.